I always do this. John Rogers is the Director of Strategic Workforce Planning for the Indiana Office of Technology, the state's enterprise provider for IT services and resources. John has served in a number of roles at the local, state, and federal levels, including over 10-year split between the United States Senate and the CIA. In his current role, he has the privilege of augmenting IoT's organization through his passion for hiring, recruiting, and developing public servant talent. You can find out a lot about John by visiting his LinkedIn page, and I put his link to that page in the email that you got this morning. So welcome, John.
Very happy to be here. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Next, we have Roshni Patrawala, and I lost it. So, and she's from Armatrol. Armatrol is a manufacturing adjacent, I would say, industry. They take care of the training, like hands-on simulators and interactive e-learning for people in manufacturing, oil and gas, and packaging. She's with us today. And we also have the Sergeant First Class John Rhodus. He joined the Army in 2006 as a cannon crew member, and now he likes to blow stuff up as a field artillery, sergeant. Yeah. So he's done a lot of tours and he's done a lot of service for our country, and he's here to talk about how all these employability skills translate even into the military. Next, we have Angie Woods. She is from Hill-Rom, and she's a human resources leader there. It's a leading global medical technology organization. She has spent her 25-year HR career in a variety of industries, like technology, financial services, pharmaceutical, and manufacturing. She has a bachelor's degree in business management and HR management, and her second passion is guiding others along their career journeys. She's a certified Gallup Strengths Coach and a career coach, and she has certifications in behavioral interviewing skills, DISC, which is an assessment, and PXT hiring assessment tools as well. And if I have Helen on.
Hi, sorry for being late. Sorry.
Thank you for coming. So Helen is the VP of K-12 and Community College Industry Solutions for Salesforce.org. She, when you look at her LinkedIn, you get kind of like fangirly, right? But in her role, her team looks after the product management, product marketing, and the go-to marketing strategies for bringing Salesforce technology to help K through 12 schools better connect, collaborate, and support student success. Prior to Salesforce, she spent 6 years at Google, with the last 4 years focused on the Google for Education team, building out the Chromebook business. In a former life, she also spent some time on Sesame Street, New Schools Venture Fund, McKinsey, Digitas, and Lehman Brothers. She's passionate about driving change in K-12 and higher education to improve access to quality education for all, especially in underserved communities. So thank you everyone for joining us. We're so happy you're here. This is my second employer panel, so I might be ripping stuff off, but this is my favorite question to ask employers, just to get a feel for what you do and who you are. So if you could please describe yourself in just 5 words and what you do, yourself or what you do in 5 words, that would be wonderful. Angie, would you like to start?
Sure. I'll tell you, it was very challenging just trying to do this in 5 words, but I would just say I provide human resources expertise to groups, to my customer group, which is not 5 words.
Close enough, right?
Yes.
John?
So I guess I'm gonna use a hyphenate on that 5th word. Let's see if we can do this. I would say I develop, strengthen, and empower the public service workforce, and that still only gets me to like 6 if we're being generous.
Right, it's close enough, right?
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Roshni, what about you? Okay, Helen, you're next.
So the 5 words is help schools use Salesforce technology, and then in parens, it's to better understand and serve their students and staff.
Wonderful. What about you, Sergeant First Class John Rhodus?
Well, I got it easy. It's just help people join the Army. So.
Telling it like it is. We really appreciate that for sure. All right, well, that's great. So this first question that I want to ask, I think I want to start off with my friend John Rogers, because he's got such an eclectic background. Can you tell me some of the most critical employability skills needed?
Yeah, absolutely. And across the board, regardless of anything that anyone's ever going to do, whether it's IT or otherwise, I lean really hard on that oral written communication piece, because it doesn't matter how bright you are, how hardworking you are, how skilled you are, if you can't get your point across, starting with your cover letter, your resume, how you articulate your points in an interview, how you are going to be able to work on site with colleagues and with people who are far above the pay scale, people who are senior managers, people who are total outsiders. If you can't communicate, there's really, it's very challenging to contribute to an organization. And especially, I think that we sort of have to double down on this a little bit in the IT world, because, for those of us who have been around technology, it can be very easy to go to lingo, to go to shorthand, to go to elements of the message that are not as easy to comprehend for a layman or somebody who is coming to an IT discussion without as much background. And sadly, that means you're going to potentially turn somebody off. They may not be willing to sort of have the vulnerability to ask you questions like, tell me more about that cybersecurity program you just detailed, because they don't even know where to start by way of asking questions. So keeping the message simple, keeping it very clear, keeping it precise and understandable to anybody. I love my grandmother and she's exceptionally brilliant, but I still like to use the grandmother test. If I could explain to my grandmother in 30 seconds or less what's going on, then I'm doing something pretty well.
Excellent advice for sure. So Sergeant Rhodes, can you tell us how employability skills impact your operations specifically, positively, or if it's absent, negatively?
Yeah, so when it comes to being in the military, I'd say hands down, they're in most cases probably some of the most important stuff. Is going to be work ethic. To me anyways, it's going to be work ethic, timeliness, and integrity are going to be like the top three that I go for, and that I'm looking for in people. Not just even, helping people enlist, but back when I'm doing my job and everything, this is primarily what I'm looking for in people that impacts on the job most, because a lot of everything we do, regardless of what it is that you're enlisted to do, is on a teamwork based level. So this is all the way down to the smallest person, the collective group, it's teamwork. A lot of that small stuff, the non-tangible skills, the soft skills and everything like that, they're critical. Learning the skills, job training, stuff like that, it's going to come. That's what we're here for. We train you on it, we teach you on it. It's like that across every other job. So it's definitely those soft skills that develop you as the person you are and how effective you're actually going to be on the team.
That's excellent. Thank you so much. Roshni, can you hear and talk now? It's so close. All right. We'll try again in a moment. Miss Angie, what employability skills are most commonly used for your specific industry, and what can students do to prepare or practice those skills?
Yeah, the groups I mainly support are research and development, so engineering and those types of groups. But the ones that come to mind for me, critical thinking, probably one of the top ones. Really, how do you solve problems, but not just bring a problem to a leader or bring a problem to the table, but have you really done your research, rolled up your sleeves, and come up with solutions to be able to say, here's the problem, here's my 5 solutions I researched, I narrowed it down to 3. This is the one I recommend for these reasons. And so I coach leaders a lot on, don't just give the answer to your employees, have them, when employees come to you with a problem, say, well, what would you recommend we do? How do we solve it? And again, you want to find out how much have they looked in through policies or research internally and externally to bring those solutions to the table. It just gives you a sense of their thought process. So definitely critical thinking, which requires, natural curiosity, always asking why and digging deeper so you really get to the root of the problem. And then the second one, which definitely comes to mind, is adaptability. I mean, we've seen so much change in the past 7 months and across the country, and I can't imagine any company or any team or any position out there that has not been impacted by what's happened in the last 7 months. I can tell you just within our company at Hillrom, when COVID hit really hard in March and April, but we completely shifted our business to ICU beds, hospital beds, acute care, hospital beds. Cranking out, ramping up manufacturing. We make ventilators. Definitely ventilator production, hospital beds, just crazy. When you think about auto manufacturers, being able to shift gears and manufacture products that they don't typically manufacture. So we're seeing just a tremendous amount of change. So I think any position, any person, if you're not adaptable, you're going to struggle. From this point forward, if you haven't already. So you've got to be resilient. You've got to be adaptable for sure.
You mind if I can I footnote that one too, because we were talking about that a little bit in the pre-panel, and adaptability is such a tremendous attribute, and just having somebody on the team at any level who can bring 3 solutions and not 3 problems.
Yes.
It's not to say that you don't want people to raise concerns where they have them. That's of course part of the drill, but it's important to know where your challenges are. But it is such a breath of fresh air when somebody can say, hey, here's the challenge we're facing. I've already looked into this and this and this. Which one do you think is really probably the best path for us to take? Job made easier, day made better for everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I just wanted to hop in there and just kind of share, I think a similar lens with adaptability. Kind of one of those core skills that I always look for is that curiosity and that eagerness and willingness to learn, right? And looking for someone that has always kind of looked for new ways of working to better themselves, to better other people, developing those ideas and figuring out how to actually take that forward. To me, that's kind of one of those core kind of soft skills that's really hard to, it isn't measured so much in the actual project itself, but actually how they came to actually delivering that and coming up with that idea. So I think always looking for someone that has shown time and time again, just being willing to step up, look for new ways, teach themselves new ways of doing things and sharing that with others, to me is a really core skill.
This is an excellent conversation. I bet we could talk about this for a full hour, right? Maybe even more. But as our students are preparing for an interview or to start engaging with employers in a career fair or a networking situation, how do you like to hear about demonstrated employability skills, such as critical thinking or innovation? What are some great scenarios or situations you've had in the past with candidates that you've heard that you can share? And I'm going to leave this as an open question. Anybody can answer.
I'll jump in. I love stories. So to have an interview be really a conversation, a dialogue where I get a chance, a glimpse into that person's past. I'm very passionate about behavior-based interviewing, so targeted selection questions. It really allows me to ask those specific questions where I get to hear, about the candidate's past, and I'm going to ask very, very detailed follow-up questions because I'm naturally curious. I want to know. Tell me about a time when you demonstrated this. What happened, and then what happened? So to me, it's a story. And it really gives me a glimpse through body language and tone, inflection, and that person's story. Yes.
How to turn that off.
Yeah, what happened, and then and certainly, and even if the situation turned out poorly, I want to know why and how did that person again adapt, and were they resilient? What did they learn? How did they apply that learning next time? So definitely story form in a conversation.
Yeah, I think just to echo that, I agree. I think we the same approach, looking for stories of past work where they've been able to exemplify that. And I think to take that further, I think storytelling has a habit of sometimes going into like long form narratives. I think being very crisp in how you deliver that story and kind of knowing kind of what was the problem from the outset, what were kind of the solution that you came up with forth, and how did you actually execute on that, and then what were the results, and taking that like very clear framework to tell that story makes it easier and be able to tell it in a very concise way to get the point across.
Yes.
I think there's also, like, as somebody who's done some career zigzagging in over a long time, it's always not. I think that there's a tendency sometimes, especially in a reskill environment, where you think, well, I'm going to go through this program or this certificate for cybersecurity. I'll never think about my career in publishing again. Not correct. In fact, the important thing is to be able to think of all those things from your career in publishing that inform what you are going to do and where you want to be in the IT sector. I actually hired somebody into a fellowship program as a mid-career pivot person because they were able to articulate, one, why they were pivoting, what their motivations were to move from a career where they were doing very well into this new field, what compelled them in there, and what lessons they were going to bring out of publishing: the attention to detail, the ability to work with others on tight deadlines, the ability to get things done that today that you were told about 5 minutes ago that you needed 2 weeks ago, just because somebody decided to change a font in a book or something like that. Those kinds of things that applied absolutely directly to what we were trying to get done on our team, absent anything to do with IT, and they spoke to that person's character and ability to serve.
That's some great insight. I really appreciate it. I'm sure our students appreciate that too. And now it's the problem is coming up with those stories, right? The ones that will connect with the employer. With that said, what do you consider employability skills or soft skills just as important, more important, or less important than those technical skills for your given industries? And we got Roshni. Hi. Yay. Are you able to unmute?
Can you hear me now?
Yes. We're in business.
Thank you.
Yes, and I don't know if you heard the question, but I'm asking, do you consider candidates' soft skills or employability skills as important, more important, or less important than the technical skills within your given industry? And I would love for you to be the first to answer it.
Thank you. So in my industry, I would say they have equal importance, mainly because your soft skills, that's going to help you with people, with your team, whatnot. And one of the things I wanted to tell you, some of the three critical for my company is being a team player, communication, and reliability. So in that sense, soft skills is just as important as the industry skills. In our case, since we are a training institute, the industry skills, that's something we can train somebody. But the soft skills, if they actually have that, for us, it's more important. Or just as.
That's great. What about, I know, Sergeant, you said that you can train the technical stuff, right?
Yeah, and that I was just going to go ahead and agree with that. I said it earlier, but the soft skills are definitely a lot more important. When it comes to the Army, it doesn't matter if, you've done it before or you're brand new to it. Let's say you enlist, you want to be a wheeled vehicle mechanic. Awesome. Whether you already know it or not, we're going to train you. Hey, this is a wrench. This is how you're going to use this wrench to get this done. And we're going to break everything down to the basic level. I mean, like, obviously my job, like field artillery, I fire a 10,000 pound howitzer. Like, no one's teaching you how to do that in school. I had to come here to learn how to do that. So no one's expected to know how to do that beforehand. So, they taught me all the basics, and I've learned all the way up to where I am now. So my job now is, at the level I'm at, is I'm responsible for, 30 plus people below me and making sure that they're getting properly trained on it and able to conduct all the drills that are necessary. So Yeah, the employability skills definitely come first. That determines the kind of person that you're going to be working with, the kind of person, it determines the kind of person you are and how you're going to carry yourself and conduct yourself in the actual workplace. And that's what I was going to say earlier about, I'm dragging this on, sorry.
You're fine.
The interview portion is, a lot of the times when it comes to the interview, what I like to tell people is, hey, based on your resume, you're getting called in for an interview because you're determined to be qualified. So you're getting they're now, you're coming in for the interview. They want to talk to you. They want to meet you, and they want to determine in person you as a person, if
Right.
you're qualified or not. So this is the time to be able to express those soft skills, how you've used them and where your strengths are, and be able to identify your weaknesses to them as well. So don't stress the interview so much. You're just there to talk about yourself. And so gloat all day long. This is where the ego comes into play.
Right. Right. So just to kind of, I'm sorry, I'm going to ask you a follow-up question to what you said. When you have two different recruits, what sets the one with the employability skills or the superstar apart from a regular average or subpar candidate when you're teaching them?
At that point, it's going to be, to me, I'm kind of looking at, it was said earlier, the curiosity, the eagerness, that I know, if you've got that, I know that helps drive your work ethic. And work ethic's going to be the one big thing that I always tell everyone, regardless of what it is you want to do in life, whatever it is you are doing in life, care. I definitely phrase it a lot differently, but that wouldn't be appropriate right now. So we'll say care about what it is you're doing. If it's flipping burgers, be the best burger flipper there is. If it's a step job, like this is a stepping stone job, it's getting me to the next goal in life, or this is just temporary to raise spring break money, or this is my life, goal, my life career, care. Apply yourself 110% every single day, even if it's a short bit, because you made the choice to do it. You chose to do whatever it is you're doing. You put yourself there. So give your all for it and go on.
Thank you. I feel like I'm getting put into my place. That's great. So I'm going to ask one last question before I turn it over to our awesome students. And this one is more relevant to your particular industries, but because I'm sure it differs from industry to industry, but what would you say are your top two most sought after employability skills when you're looking at a new hire to be successful in your particular organization? And how do you actually determine if a candidate has those skills? Floor is yours.
Oh, sorry, Angie, you jump in. I'll follow you if you were jumping.
Go ahead. All right, I'll go. I think it comes back to adaptability, and there's got to be some people skills in there as well, whether it's collaboration, teamwork, interpersonal skills. I mean, you insert the one that means the most to you, but it doesn't matter if you're, dealing with spreadsheets all day or a robot all day or people all day. I mean, you have to have some level of people skills because what you're doing impacts somebody else on the other end, whether it's building medical technology, it's manufacturing something, it's so you have to have some level of interpersonal skills, and you mentioned it, John, care. You have to care about the person who's on the other end, and ask those why questions. How is what I'm doing today going to impact that other person? You have to just care about the person, your customer, internal customers, external customers, and reach across and have some empathy skills to walk a step in that person's view in terms of what you're doing for the job. But definitely adaptability. I keep saying that you've got to be adaptable, resilient, learn new skills, even for your own career management. I mean, again, being able to adapt and pivot and be able to take roles that are lateral, not just one ladder rung up, up the step. You've got to be able to be willing to put yourself in that position of wherever the company or team or your boss needs you to be at that particular point in time. There's no, this is not my job description, or, that's not my job. I think those days are gone. You have to be that utility player to fit in wherever's needed.
That's great advice. John, are you taking them?
Sure. Well, because I mean adaptability. I could just as easily follow on and just say like concur. Absolutely. Like, so one thing that I'll add just for like specific to say an interview setting, it's always critically important for me to hear from the candidate why here. Okay, I get it. You want to do cybersecurity. You want to do application development. You want to do server administration. Wonderful. Why here? Why Indiana Office of Technology? Why the state of Indiana? You could apply to this job wherever. What is it you're telling me in the interview that speaks to my sense of mission here? How are you going to be good for my organization? Otherwise, I could interview somebody else who, don't make yourself a dime a dozen to the person on the other side. I want to know what your passion is about my organization. And I want to know, so two questions to really like own my interviews. Number one, why do you want to be here? What's your interest in the state of Indiana? And number two is usually the one that is at the very end. What questions do you have for me? I want to know what you, the interviewee, what you've already dug in on beyond the like, hey, do you have health benefits? Okay, that's on a website. I got that. Great. Like, talk to me about what makes you passionate about the organization, about public service, about something else. Ask me about like what my worst day was on the job or anything like that. Like, talk to me about stuff that I'm going to want to engage on.
No, that's awesome. So let's just say you have two qualified candidates and one is maybe a little green when it comes to technical skills, but obviously wants to work for the state of Indiana, compared to somebody who may be just as qualified or more qualified that is coming at you kind of generically. Who gets the upper hand?
If I'm being honest, probably green.
Yeah.
Apples to apples. If we're talking about, it's kind of the old story of like you have two people who can run to first base, who has perfect form right now and gets there a half a step ahead of the person who has kind of raw form, but you can tell that once you put some work into them, they're going to be at second base before the first person can get to first. I'll take the potential and the passion every time over somebody who is just generically going to show up and take a job.
I really just wanted, I wanted my students to hear it, but I think everybody needs to hear it at one point in their life, right? We can open the floor up now to questions. If students want to type them in the chat box, or just go ahead and unmute yourselves and ask the panel. And if you don't ask questions, I'm coming after you. And while we're waiting, I'm waiting. Oh, good.
Hey.
Becky. Welcome, Becky. Hi.
Hey, Jessica. My question goes to Roshni from Ametro. And the question I want to ask is, I'm currently enrolled at Ivy Tech as a student who will be going for advanced mechatronics. And I know that in the manufacturing technology right now, they're dealing with machine learning. What is so unique about Ametro? Because I also read that in there they offer courses that teach students how to be more versatile with where the technology is. What would you say what would you say is the one thing that sets other companies apart when Ametro is put in there?
So one thing, what we offer our students, can you hear me, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we offer an apprenticeship program for students who are qualified, for employees, I should say, not just students, for employees who are qualified. Basically, what we do is we teach them we give them hands-on training to work a CNC machine, or to work a to work a CNC machine, or to learn how to operate the heavy machinery, the equipment that's required to build the learning systems that we do. So basically, that's what I think sets us apart from other companies, is that we offer that hands-on training. Does that answer your question, Rebecca?
Yes, it does. So does that mean even if a student goes to school and learns the basics, you guys go one step farther and just teach them like what is specific about your company?
Absolutely.
Right? Okay. Thank you, Roshni.
I'm gonna verbalize it, but that was a great example of a student doing her research before posing the question. And she also introduced herself as a student at Ivy Tech and told about her major. So now Roshni has an idea of who she's talking to within the first 5 seconds of meeting somebody, right? Just a little tip there from your local elevator pitch lady. So my friend Jade has a question for Miss Woods. What would you suggest in upgrading the interpersonal, oral, and written communication skills for the very reason of servicing socially within different ethnicities?
That is a great question. And I want to make sure that I'm understanding the question. Is this more in terms of diversity and just including, you know, and really expanding those skill sets when it comes to oral and written, and just more around, you know, being
right? I think being more
sensitive.
Yeah, sensitive and, you know, less biased in your writing and all your communications. That's what I'm gathering, at least. Jade, am I right? Yeah. Okay.
And I think it comes to just being willingness to be open and ask questions. I mean, I'm definitely a fan of just training, and I know at Hillrom definitely we have several employee resource groups, a lot of initiative conversation from our CEO and various leaders around diversity, some very raw conversations we've had, just telecast, webcast conversations, leader-led sessions around just questions and very frank conversations. So we do, you know, diversity training and inclusion training. So just I'm a fan of that, but there's also tools out there that really help. I mean, I'm thinking of Textio as being one of them, really looking at various recruiting tools and HR tools in terms of just, you know, putting a job description through a tool that says, okay, from the language, is it biased, you know, and how is it? And just being able to evaluate, being able to step back and look at job descriptions, job postings, for example. This is one small example to say, is the language that I'm using to put out a job posting or a job description, is it biased one way or the other? And to put it through a tool like that and get it back and think, wow, you step back and go, well, how could I word this better? Or how could I word this differently to be more inclusive and to be able to cast that net wider, you know, to be able to capture, again, all of the available candidates out there in the job market. So that's just one example that is really cool to use technology that could help, you know, flesh out some bias just in the written language. But certainly from an oral perspective and conversations and everyday interactions that we have with each other, I love that what we're doing at Hillrom, I mean, certainly from the CEO down, is saying we're going to be vulnerable. We're going to be willing to show up and have those conversations, open, honest, and to ask questions when we truly don't know, you know, how what we say or what we do impacts another. Let's just be, and give some grace to others who truly don't understand. So we're having lots of conversations, lots of training and initiatives around that within Hillrom. I don't know if that answered your question or not, but there's a couple of examples.
It was actually really insightful. You know, technology just is moving at the speed of light. And we know about ATS, when you get your resume put into the applicant tracking system, you get immediately filtered out if you don't have those keywords in there. But who would have thought that you have something on your end to make sure that your job descriptions are reaching the most diverse population of people and doing so without being subjective?
Yes,
that's awesome. So we do have another question from Zach. This is for Mr. Rogers. What is the best way to handle being out of the field for about 3 years and trying to get back into the field? I'm assuming IT. He's got 6 years of various IT work under his belt.
And I'm sure that probably everybody on this very distinguished panel has an answer for that one. But just to kind of kick this off, you know, I think number one is it really depends on the sort of position you're going for, to look very carefully at the job description or descriptions for the particular path, and then, you know, ideally to reach out to some folks in that organization to put that very question to them directly. It doesn't have to be a mystery. Try to get some folks, you know, on the phone, over email, and ask, like, hey, what are you valuing as part of this? I have this and this on my resume. I have Network Plus, but I don't have Security Plus. What are you really looking for that might not be spelled out in the job description? Or I see that you really would love to have somebody who has a CISSP. I don't have that yet, but what weight do you put on that variable in the process? And just ask some candid questions. I mean, the worst thing you're ever going to hear is no. And I can't, I mean, as somebody who wants to hire capable people, like, why would I not want to talk to you about my job? That just doesn't, that's a great way to have somebody decide to look for another job, not mine. And then I think just probably some just surface research about, for example, if you were in IT in server administration, just doing some basic research into like what criteria goes into the area of IT that you're most interested in. So, if that's, an MCSA or maybe you have A+, but you need to add Network Plus or Security Plus or something like that. But like I said, I'm sure everybody has an answer to this one that might be even a little different than what I've said.
Yeah. Does anybody else have like anything to add to that when you exit an industry for a couple of years and then come back to it?
I would piggyback on that just to say, I think it's important for you to demonstrate what you've done. I mean, I think the natural thing I think about is if someone has, had a baby and you had been out, maybe, took a detour to stay off and raise kids and then come back into the workforce. I think it's important to just show, well, how have you kept your skills up? What training have you gotten? What networking opportunities have you taken? Have you taken any volunteer roles? I mean, kind of going back to transferable skills, are there things that you've done in a different capacity or different role that could be transferable and bring it back to, I'm visual. So I'm thinking about going down a road, you take a detour, and how do you bring yourself back and being able to show how you kept those skills up?
Oh yeah, that's a great visual for sure. Anybody else?
Jessica, I have a question for Sergeant First Class Rhodus. My name's
Tim, can you give me 1 second?
Sure.
I think Helen wanted to add something to that last question.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No.
Sorry about that. No, I just wanted to echo that, which was, I think, just being able to kind of have a good explanation in terms of what the gap was and what you did with that time. And I think trying to keep your foot in that pulse on whatever industry you are looking to do. And I think to that point, just whether it's volunteer, whether it's research, whether it's additional courses that you've taken online, making sure that you show kind of why you're making that switch and what you've done to really prepare yourself for it. And it doesn't have to, I actually was given this advice recently. It doesn't mean that you were doing it for like the 3 years or wherever that you were away and taking, some time off, but, just it pulses here and there just to give employers kind of that sense of like, oh no, like they were still trying to really find new ways and learn new things, throughout that gap.
Thank you, Helen. And I think that even answers a question in the chat from Jeremy, but we can expand on that after. Tim, if you want to go ahead and Sergeant.
Allow me to introduce myself. My name's Tim Warwick, and I am just starting out in human services at Ivy Tech in Valparaiso. My question's for Sergeant First Class Rhodus. And first of all, I want to thank him for his service and say that you're an excellent example for the Army. We appreciate all of that. But my question is for people who are service members at the end of their term of service, what do you think they bring back to be very competitive in the job and workforce environment, and also in the community and in school? What makes them unique and very competitive and really leaders in a lot of places in our communities?
So the one thing I like to reach back on, it becomes all those soft skills. So there's a whole lot, like, for instance, my job, it doesn't really have a whole lot you can put on a resume, blow stuff up, short and sweet. Doesn't really have a lot that you can put on there. But as a Sergeant First Class, like, I'm responsible for the career progression, the well-being, professional and personal development of over 30 plus people. So I have, it's the non-tangible stuff. So, I have resource management skills. I have personnel management skills, things like that. So everyone that in the military, regardless of the branch, that is all stuff, regardless of what capacity they served in, that they are definitely bringing back to the table that I know people are looking for when it comes to hiring. That's what we've been talking about primarily this whole time. Now, when it comes to getting into certain different career paths and everything, if they served at that capacity in the Army, for instance, saying in an IT position or as a mechanic, of some sorts or in the medical field and everything that you do while in the military directly translates, counts. I mean, it's been updated, but when I was in basic training, that's 8 college credits.
Right.
So everything I've done, every school I've been to in the military, everything that I've done directly translates as either a college credit or towards credentialing. We also have the new, and when you go to transition back into the civilian world, we have an excellent year-long program that you can take part in it during the whole last year of your time in service. And it helps with things like this. You get employability skills, you help learn how to do a resume properly. They have job fairs, all sorts of different things you learn. It helps transition you back in so that you can already be prepared and show and utilize stuff like that. Because a lot of people don't know, you know, hey, oh shoot, I do have all of these skills. I do have, you know, this kind of employability stuff and everything. So what they've done is going to count as certifications, as credentials, as college credits to help them and they're transitioning back, as well as all of the different stuff that they don't realize, the intangible skills, the employability skills and stuff like that that they've learned and they don't realize that they've learned during that. You know, some people don't realize they've learned during their time in to actually help them be an effective member of the workplace. I'm essentially doing the same thing everyone else is. It's a 9 to 5. I just work a little bit longer hours. That's all.
Thank you for your service. Great answer. Appreciate your help.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Let's see here. We have Lisa. She says, hi, panel, and thank you for your time today. I'm an advanced automation and robotics student, and she's wanting to know, what as employers do you consider the most important for a possible employee? Grades or skills and knowledge?
Jessica, I'd like to answer that one if that's okay.
Yeah.
So Lisa, in answer to your question, what I look for is for skills and knowledge. You know, grades are definitely an important piece, but what you are bringing to the table as far as your skills background, that is the most important because that's less trained that we would have to do on our part. Hope that answers your question.
I would agree. I would agree with that.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a unanimous vote for skills and knowledge. Honestly, no one, you know, we tell you to put on your resume if you have a GPA over 3.0. And the whole reason behind that is to show that you're consistent and you're persistent in your education. It's not to say that you're smarter than somebody else. Really, the skills and the education that you're receiving at Ivy Tech and from your previous lives are what's going to be more important for sure. That's my 2 cents.
Absolutely.
Yep. Oh, I missed this. John did add to a comment from earlier that it's useful for someone to reach back out to past employers or mentors within your field to kind of ask what the trends are and what they're looking for today. Because you have that established relationship already, so you can be more comfortable in asking that question. I'm assuming that's a great piece of advice. Yeah,
and you know, just to lightly add to that, and I believe this was something that John mentioned earlier. No, absolutely, the care piece, which is just to say, no matter if you don't like the job that you're doing right now, always do your best work, because that person ultimately is going to be a positive or a negative reference for you at some point in the future. And at some point, if you're in a job that you don't care for, but you're doing your best, when you find your dream job and that new employer reaches back to the old one and says, hey, you know, John was here. I know that that he's moved on. Like, what did you think about his work? That person's still going to be able to. They're not going to say, well, he checked out and clearly was not invested in our organization. They're going to say, oh, he was a really hard worker, and I was really sad to see him leave. You know, they don't have to know that internally. Maybe I'm not finding that to be my dream job.
Luke Hyatt asks, as a student coming out of college with no work experience in their field of study, what is your biggest concern in hiring them? I'm going to ask you a question, Luke. Do you have work experience in general? And then Helen.
Yeah, it's more like manual labor, and I'm in informatics right now. And like, I guess my big concern is like when I put that on a resume, it shows like, well, like I've done some work, but does he really know what he's doing? Because their fields are so different.
Yeah.
I'm glad to step in on that one. Since the Indiana Office of Technology is my first ever IT organization, some 20 years later. So Luke, that work experience though you had in manual labor still taught you some things that you're going to be able to bring to bear to wherever you want to go next. It's important about how you craft that narrative between what you learned on that job and how well you did that job. And what you want to do with that moving forward. What motivated you to now move forward in informatics, for example? Not everybody is in their dream job in the very first job out of the gate, and we've all been there to have to pursue that first job, whatever it might be. So it's really more about how you tell your story and the sort of perseverance and the aptitude you've put into what you're doing right now that's going to make you a quality candidate on my end, whether or not you've done it before.
Yeah, and just
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just to add on to that. I would say look for ways in which you can, whether it's through volunteering, find different ways to kind of get that experience. Sorry, my dog's trying to escape. But like whether that's volunteering on your on Ivy Tech on the campus itself with different departments, whether it's finding nonprofits, trying to show that kind of curiosity and eagerness to learn and to find the steps that you're doing to kind of get more skilled, I think is incredibly powerful. So even if the bulk of your time prior work experience was spent in manual labor, again, what John just said, showing kind of how those soft skills really apply in this new field, but then like showing your initiative in terms of finding new ways to get some additional experience in that, the field that you're going to be going into.
Thank you, guys.
And did you have anything to add, or did she pretty much sum it up?
He did. I was going to take it from the angle, and certainly what John said was great. But I mean, just piggybacking, just finding ways to tell that story, whether it's the classes that you really liked or hobbies that you have that fit within that field of study. So it doesn't have to be like actual work, truly being paid for that employment, but are there other ways to bring those experiences into the interview answers that you'll give or on your resume to be able to show again, why did you go into informatics and why is that your passion now, to be able to tell that story on paper and in person.
We have a question from my friend Marvelous, who is from Nigeria. I'm currently studying secondary education, getting prepared to work immediately after graduation. What is the most important skills required as an employee from the employer? So I'm thinking this is in more particular of secondary education, since the whole panel is about all the skills, but like what do you think is good for education, especially for high schoolers?
So, and just to clarify, does that mean looking to work in a high school post-graduation?
Yeah, I believe when I talked to Marvelous, he's I believe it's interested in secondary and post-secondary.
Got it.
So I started out as a high school teacher. Helen, how about you? Have you taught?
I have not. I've taught in daycare center, so very young kids.
Okay. The patience of Job. I mean, good workplace resilience ranks right up there. So I taught high school. I had predominantly sophomores, but freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. Patience and energy, solid answer from Helen for the win. I think, and you know what, let's talk about adaptability, because every day in a secondary education environment is a brand new challenge that is, I mean, you could have a kid, walk in with some very dark thing going on at home that you've got to deal with. You could have kids who have disabilities you need to deal with. You've got kids who are going to be super bright and exceptional, who are going to need to be challenged, and they've probably never had to try in some cases throughout their brief educational careers. And you got to teach all those kids equally with basically one plan,
Right.
or a variant on the same theme. So boy, oh boy, let's Angie, this is where you just jump in and say adaptability 3 more times. That's 100% the answer.
Yes, and our friend Wendy from another, she's a career coach from another campus, I believe. She comes from secondary education, and she's just reiterating that they'd love to hire student teachers. So maybe Marvelous and Wendy should hook up and get a little informational interview going on.
It's all about networking.
Yep. Well, we're getting ready to wrap up. Does anybody have one final question before I ask my one final question? I don't want to take all the thunder, but I will if I have to.
JJ, I would like to ask them a question. I'm Becky, a career coach up at South Bend, who used to work for the state of Indiana as a DVOP and was also in the Army. But my question is, because I've had career changes for all of you, is early in your career, what is one thing that you would have liked to know about career development or progression or anything related that you learned along the way?
I got this one. So a lot of it, I want to say is looking into everything it is that wherever it is you're looking to apply has to offer to you. Almost everything you're doing in life after you get out of high school is in some way, form, shape, or another an investment. And the biggest thing about investing is the ROI, the return on investment. So what am I getting back? So it's not only a matter of when you're trying to get a job, it's trying to tell them what can you do for them, but what can they do for you? So figure out all of the different programs that they have, all of the different opportunities that you can take advantage of while you're looking to get into it and everything like that. Though I wished I'd have known half of the stuff that I know about the Army now that I'm 14 years into it, back when, or had listened to people that were, my superiors when I was just starting off, about all the sorts of different opportunities and stuff like that I could get into and invest in to better adapt myself and to better grow and to take full advantage of while I was in. So that would be, my one thing is look into every resource and opportunity that you have that's afforded to you from your employer or whatever it is that you're getting yourself into, and try to take full advantage of it.
I would piggyback off that. One thing I tell new hires and folks that are earlier in their careers, probably in any job that I've had, is you own your career. So just what you said, John, is, take advantage of every opportunity, be scrappy, ask for it. So, my favorite conversations, some of them are, when employees say, well, I didn't get that promotion or I didn't get that job. Well, did you ask for it? Did you let your leader know you were interested in that opportunity? That's on you. So when it comes time to have performance discussions or career development discussions, speak up. Don't be afraid to say, hey, this is what I'm interested in, or I don't know what my career path options are. What are they? And then you be scrappy and you go reach out to people inside the company, outside the company. You can't have enough mentors and sponsors and people inside the company, outside the company to help you along your career. You own that. So take advantage of it.
Thank you.
I'm living through this conversation right now. Okay, so last, before we wrap up, and we're going to move on into our speed networking session. What is one resource, be it a website, a book, a podcast, that you have utilized or love when it comes to your professional growth?
Well, it's a bit of an unconventional answer, but I think it's appropriate for what I'm about to say. Read anything, listen to anything produced by Malcolm Gladwell. Like, get his books, listen to his podcast. It's taking a notion of something that you think makes sense on the surface and taking a deeper dive or finding two seemingly unconnected things and seeing how they intersect. So practice thinking differently. Listen to his perspectives. It's changing. It's fantastic.
And did I spell his name right in the chat, John? Sweet.
Perfect.
Yeah, thank you. I know you have to hop off, so thank you so much, John, for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. It's a real privilege and an honor. Thanks, everybody.
you.
Does anybody else?
Thank you.
I mean, I think just to echo that point, I think taking opportunities to learn and whether that's through books, through mentors, I think that's the one thing that as I look at kind of my journey and found kind of my different career paths, that's what I've always kind of sought out. And sometimes it was when I was working in finance and really wanting to get into advertising, I read a ton of books about advertising and great advertising legends. And I just, one, got me more excited and passionate about joining that industry. But it also led me on that path and being able to speak the language a lot better when I actually started interviewing for that. Malcolm Gladwell's another great one. Dan O'Reilly, behavioral economics, is just a personal favorite and an interest and field of mine. But finding those opportunities to really kind of improve yourself, better yourselves, add more knowledge, because you'll find different ways to kind of sprinkle that in and to bring that into the actual work that you do.
Awesome. Sergeant or Angie?
I was just thinking of some books I've read recently. I mean, Simon Sinek is one that, pops up in my mind a lot. Certainly I read a lot of his things, great books. Why? I mean, start with why. I mean, I think that's very appropriate for this group too. Start with why. Why is it that you want to do what you do, and keep digging until you find that answer to your why.
Yeah, your motivation, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And network. I mean, find people that are currently doing what you want to do and reach out and introduce yourself through LinkedIn or through wherever and connect with those individuals, ask questions, just be naturally curious.
I have a question for Helen really quick. As a future elementary teacher, do you have any suggestions or anything with this, everything technology now? We don't know what is going to happen in the future with education. And I was curious on what your thoughts were about that, or how technology is helping students now, or what I can learn about that now while I'm in school.
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I just love the way you phrase that and like your thinking in that. I know we said this word a lot, adaptability. And I think that's just true. One, it's getting versed in kind of how students, teachers are using technology today, but also being on the lookout and being unafraid to try new things and to test that out. Because I think, and I actually think there's another person on the panel that's just joining for your speed networking, Scott Gutowski on my team, but he's a great one to talk to. He's the former CTO of Pittsburgh Public Schools. But it is being on that journey to constantly learn, to be willing to take risks and to learn new ways of doing. That's kind of the challenge of technology in schools today, because things are going to change. We don't know what it's going to look like, but being willing to take the energy to make those efforts to learn new ways of doing, and being willing to adapt, that core skill is going to serve you so well in your career.
Oh, great. Thank you so much.
Jessica, I think you're muted.
You're muted, JJ.
I had another window highlighted, dummy. Ooh. So we're going to go ahead and put an X on the employer panel and call it one and done. Thank you so much for joining.